It is 4 days and counting until the return of Eagles football. The 2021 season getting ready to get underway. We're underway here on Bird 365. As you can tell by the screen, it's me, Jody Mack. I got Jeff Kerr as my co-host today because my usual co-host has got to get tested. And it is not a drunken driving test or anything. He's got to go get a COVID test to make sure he's okay to cover the Eagles on Sunday. That would be one John McMullen, who's going to start the show as a guest rather than a co-host. McMullen, you haven't failed any of these tests, have you?
No, not yet. I wouldn't be taking this one if I failed one. So so far, now you got me worried about it, Jody. I went down the dark path with the drunk driving test.
That's my job, is to scare you, John McMullen.
Yeah, and by the way, I woke up with some allergies, so I immediately go, oh, here we go. But I'm fine. I'll get through.
Hop in that Allegra D, John. You'll be good as new.
Yeah, I find as I get older, I never had allergies when I was younger. Now they pop up quite a bit more. I don't know if that's you guys have had the same path, but I imagine Eagles fans want us to go down a different road. Here I go.
Yeah, I had allergies when I was a kid. Now I'm good. The question is, are the Eagles good? Or how good are the Eagles? A little roster juggling, John, adding a late cornerback to the mix. Don't know how much they're going to be able to get him up for speed this week, but he's on the roster, so he's going to play. Give us your take on the new Mac who's coming to town.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I don't know much about him as a player. I don't know how many people do. Obviously, an undrafted free agent coming in. Got a lot of length. That's the one thing I looked at the Eagles' original 53. I think I mentioned it on the show, Jody. I did not like the depth at outside corner behind Darius Slay and Steve Nelson. And they've already addressed it potentially twice if you go back to Andre Chachure. However, we figured out how to pronounce that name. If you go back to him, now he might play safety as well because he had some versatility, but it's pretty clear that they weren't happy with the depth in the secondary. And when you looked at things, that made a lot of sense. As promising as Zach McPherson looked as a rookie against second and third teamers, you saw it get a little bit worse when they sort of tested him against first teamers. And I always talk about, just for young corners in this league, it's just really difficult to play right away. So, look, I think they'll be fine if Slay and Steve Nelson are healthy, but that's a position where you look all around this league, you need 5-6 corners to play during a season because those guys are going to get nicked up. They're going to get a hammy, and they got to be at an optimal level. So, if a cornerback has just got a little bit of a strained hamstring or something like that, you probably don't want to push it. So you need depth at that position.
John, I was talking to Tony Gonzalez yesterday, and we were kind of, we were talking about the Falcons a little bit, and he said, don't be surprised if Matt Ryan slings it on Sunday, especially with the Eagles secondary. What do you feel is going to be, what do the Eagles have to do essentially to kind of stop that from, pretty much Ryan throwing 40 times for about 400 yards?
I think it's got to be the pass rush. I think it's got to be that defensive line, and they got to get home with 4. It can't be. I know everybody loves the blitz. I know everybody's excited to see some Mike Zimmer-like looks, and they think it's going to be more variable, more varied fronts. We go back to Jim Schwartz. We were talking about Alex Singleton yesterday. You want to get home with 4, and you want to be able to cover as many people as possible. The good news is, the defensive line is really good. I think it's one of the best in football. And I think it's got a chance to be the best, especially if Josh Sweat turns the corner like a lot of people think he is going to do this season. So it's going to be a lot with the Eagles defense. It's on those guys. I mean, those guys are good, and the back 7 is questionable, to be kind.
I would say certainly the front 4 is the strength of this defensive team, but I'm going to buy into what JG's selling, and I think they are going to blitz, John. And if you believe that they truly believe that they can cause turnovers, that turnovers are a key, that the whole hits mantra of getting those turnovers. A lot of times when you bring that extra guy, not only does he get there, he gets there clean and he gets there unexpected, which can mean tip passes, which can mean hit the quarterback while he's throwing it, get the ball up in the air. I do think they're going to be aggressive. The question is, if that's the case, if they're bringing an extra, which they did very infrequently with Jim Schwartz, where's it coming from? Linebacker, safety, or do you think we're going to see some action off the corner a couple times during this game to try and confuse Matty Ice a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying they're never going to blitz. Obviously, they're going to blitz on occasion. I think the hope would be that you don't need the blitz very much. And, I think they're going to play a lot of cover 2, cover 3, which I don't think should be a surprise. That's been, Gannon's thought process through the whole thing. But, yeah, I'm interested when he does give the A-gap looks. I know Jannard Avery was the one who kind of did it a little bit in the preseason. And he's got some pass rush ability, but he's been banged up. He's back at practice. So we'll check the participation report today and see how close he is, if he's able to go. But I mean, if you do, you talk about safety. There's no Harrison Smith here. There's no Darius Leonard here. There's no Anthony Barr here. So it's a fair question. I mean, if you have those kinds of players, it's easy to dial that up. It's not as easy to dial up when you don't have those players, and it's more about the surprise aspect of it. And by the way, Matt Ryan is
sorry, John. Go ahead.
Matt Ryan has seen everything. It's going to be tough to fool him. The thing with Matt Ryan, you just got to make him uncomfortable, and that's where the pass rush comes. But he's not going to be surprised by a blitz.
He is a veteran. I'll give you that. Ryan Kerrigan, we've seen so little of him because of the hand problem that he suffered during the preseason. The first couple of weeks when he first came in, when camp opened up, people were pleasantly surprised. Hey, he's still got the step. He's going to be able to contribute here, and he's been in bubble wrap for a while now. How close is he? What kind of a factor do you think he plays here week 1?
Yeah. I mean, he hasn't practiced, so we'll see. We'll have a better indication today if he's got a chance to play. Originally, when he had the thumb surgery, they said 7 to 10 days. So in theory, he should be ready to go. He's one of those guys where I don't necessarily about preseason reps. So hopefully he is healthy. I think his role is more interesting. Is he going to be just the 4th defensive end? In that case, you're talking probably 20-25% of the snaps, maybe, because you're so deep. Or is he going to be in the mix for that Sam linebacker role, which would be new for him, but he played 3-4 outside linebacker. It's not like there's going to be a ton of coverage responsibilities, but guess what? If you need somebody to drop into coverage, if it's a zone blitz look or something like that, I mean, he's got more experience doing it than Jannard Avery or Patrick Johnson or somebody like that. Now, I have heard the curveball, and I probably threw it out there, that we might show up and Alex Singleton might play a little bit of that spot, and you have Eric Wilson and TJ Edwards. So there's different ways you can go about it. And throw a little bit of a curveball, which I know the Eagles are very interested in doing. And maybe that would be the best route to go at that Sam linebacker position. And then sort of, Alex is smart enough to where he can play Sam linebacker in those situations and then move back inside off ball and still be that 3-down linebacker they need. So there's a lot of ways they can go, but one thing you can say about that particular position, a lot of uncertainty, and that's been a theme for this Eagles. So a lot of uncertainty surrounds this team.
John, I think the Eagles have a couple options here. I know one that's out, you probably do too, but who the heck is going to be responsible for Kyle Pitts on Sunday?
Good question. I would say, Jeff, that, and I say the same thing about Devontae Smith here. I mean, I think Kyle Pitts is going to be a great player. I think he's going to be really, really difficult, but I also think he's going to have some hiccups as a rookie player. Every rookie player does. You go back to Jefferson last year, historic rookie season, whatever he ended up, 1,400 yards. Okay, he wasn't a starter week one. He didn't even start. There's a ramp up period for these guys. So I would say it looks bad on paper. Who do you have to stop a player like that? But I think you're getting a little bit of a break getting him so early in the season, because I think he's going to need time to get his feet on the ground and figure things out. So I think that alone will help the Eagles. And I think they're going to throw a bunch of different looks at him for that reason. I don't think it's going to be one guy. I don't think it's going to be Anthony Harris or Rodney McLeod if he's healthy, or we just mentioned the Sam linebacker. If they did that, JG would be crazy, and I don't think he's crazy. I think they're going to throw a lot of different looks at him to try to confuse him. That is a player they can confuse. They're probably not going to confuse Matt Ryan.
J-Mac, as Jeff just told us, he had a chance to talk to Tony Gonzalez, and he's looking for Matt Ryan to throw and throw and throw some more in the opener. I would too, because I don't know about you. Mike Davis doesn't scare me.
Last couple they have no running game, so they have to throw it.
Exactly. Yeah. He was okay in Carolina at best. They just picked up Wayne Gallman, who's a guy I actually liked when he was with the Giants. I thought he did a yeoman's job with Barkley out of the lineup last year, but they just picked him up, so he's not even ingratiated into that system much. There's a chance that Matty Ice may put it up 45 to 50 times on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, that's the strength. Calvin Ridley's a really good receiver. They're not as good as they once were, obviously, with no Julio Jones, but they do have Kyle Pitts. They do have, you might see a lot of 12 personnel, but it's not really 12 because Kyle Pitts is more of a receiver. So I always talk about those labeling personnel things. It doesn't really matter. You're labeling, okay, there's two tight ends on the field, but one acts like a receiver. So I think they have to throw the ball, because you're right with Mike Davis. I mean, Cordero Patterson is their backup running back for now. And that guy, and that we should talk about that. I said that guy scares me on kickoff returns. You better kick it out of the end zone, or he can come out from 9 yards deep. And I haven't seen much from these special teams groups, to be honest.
Whoa. Hold on. J.J. Arcega-Whiteside made the team because of his outstanding special teams play.
Yeah. I think, and I'm on record with this, and I mentioned it with Krause last night. We were doing a show. To me, he is, and it doesn't even matter in the modern NFL, because most places you just take it at the 25 and go. He is the best kickoff returner I've ever seen. He is the Justin Tucker of kickoff returners. He will take it 9 yards deep, and he will. You can go back to the Chip Kelly days. Remember what the Eagles did when Patterson was returning kicks? They fractured their whole game plan by just trying to kick it away from him and giving him great field position every single time. Look, he's aging. Maybe he's not at that level anymore, but he's the best kickoff returner I've ever seen. And I never talk about kickoff returners because they're meaningless in the modern NFL. But Jake Elliott, remember, he had that ankle. Aaron Cepas was kicking off. They probably better find somebody who can kick it out of the end zone.
John, I wanted to mention this too. I spoke to Jalen Hurts Friday, and this is my first chance at a one-on-one with him. And I got a couple guys from Oklahoma. They told me, hey, prepare yourself a little bit. He doesn't say much. And I was like, okay, I've listened to a couple of his press conferences. They were right to an extent, but I did figure out something. He seems like a guy that when you ask him about somebody else, especially on his team or, another quarterback, especially from Alabama, he'll open up a little bit more. Have you gotten that sense just from, being there every day?
Yeah, he's a guy that you're right. He doesn't like to talk about himself, and I think that's part of the natural leadership that we always talk about. He's willing to prop up his teammates, and I think that doesn't go unnoticed. He's also much more willing to talk about, for instance, I the one-on-one with him too, Jeff, and I got into Texas high school football. He loves talking about that. Stuff like that. He will really open up. But yeah, I mean, he's been taught well as far as the NFL goes, and he understands. And it really comes from Nick Saban. It's not anything the Eagles have done in his time at Alabama and what he went through at Alabama. And Nick Saban, because we have Nick here, really got it through to him, and he calls it rat poison, which you've probably heard, Jeff. Don't feed into it at all. And he really has took that to heart way back when, and he continues to do it. He does a really good job navigating that kind of stuff, whether it was Carson Wentz this year, whether it was Gardner Minshew last year with Gardner Minshew this year. He does a really, really good job deflecting that stuff and changing the narrative and changing the conversation, which people can say, what does that matter? I think it matters a lot for a quarterback to be able to have that kind of skill and to be able to handle those types of situations, especially in Philadelphia, because it's obviously Howie Roseman doesn't consider those situations, by the way.
I got a couple of texts while you're just talking to Jeff there from Billy White Shoes Johnson and Devin Hester, who said, best kick returner in the history of the National Football League, Cordell Patterson. What is McMullen smoking? There's a test they should be giving him today, and it's not a COVID test, either a drug test or an alcohol test. But that's just someone else's opinion.
Who's the best? Who's the best kickoff returner? That's like going old school and giving me, Jan Stenerud is better than Justin Tucker. He's not. That's not to say Jan Stenerud was the first kicker of the Hall of Fame, was one of the all-time great kickers. But if you see Justin Tucker kick, whatever it is, different era, obviously, better nutrition. They take care of their bodies better. Cordell Patterson is the best kickoff returner that ever lived. How many return for kicks does he have, Jeff?
He has 8. He has 8. It's tied for the most all time.
8. Where they don't even have kickoffs, Jody. He's still got 8.
There are less kickoffs. There are more touchbacks than ever before. But he could, and he's been doing it for a while. You're right. He's been around for a while. He's one of the best. I don't know if I would call him the best of all time. But again, we're splitting hairs here. All right, Johnny Mac. New responsibility for Nick Sirianni, and that's head coach play calling. It's one thing to be handed it off every once in a while by your head coach and given a chance to show your wares and the like. And Sirianni has done some of that preseason stuff before he got here. But this is his team, his call, him making all the key decisions on Sunday. He doesn't look like it phases him. We've seen him. You've interviewed him. Everybody's had a chance to talk to him. I think, at least as far as confidence goes, I think he's ready for it. Why should we have faith that he is going to be good in that very important aspect of his job?
I don't know if you should have faith. I guess, I shouldn't say that. Faith is good at times if it makes you happy, but I think that belongs in the uncertain category, like a lot of things with this team. We got to see it. I mean, it's just different in a live game. We're going 60 minutes. He's been very upfront that he didn't game plan for the preseason, nor should he. Nobody does. But he went extra vanilla. Is there an extra vanilla flavor? If there is, he did it. He didn't show anything. So you don't know until you see it. I think it's going to be a lot more RPOs. I think the positives are he's a malleable coach. And he's not going to, pound the square peg in the round hole and say, this is my system. I think he's going to build it around what Jalen Hurts does well. And if, Jalen sprains an ankle or something and Joe Flacco has to come in, he's going to change. And I think that's the most positive part of Nick Sirianni. And I think he and Frank Reich and the entire Indianapolis offensive coaching staff got to show that over the past number of years, because what happened to them after Andrew Luck's retirement, you know, they went from Luck to Jacoby Brissett to Phillip Rivers. Those are not typical. Those are not quarterbacks that are stylistically similar. And they always put together at least a competent offense. And I think that part is what you should hang your faith on. But we have to see it. I mean, we haven't seen anything.
John, I'm going to go back to my interview with Tony Gonzalez, and I just happened to bring up Zach Ertz, and you know, his eyes lit up when I mentioned him. And he said, look, you know, I'm sure you saw the quote I put on Twitter, you know, he might be one of the most underrated tight ends ever. And he said on Sunday, the Eagles would be foolish not to use him, and they'd be foolish not to use him this season. He's really high on Ertz having a bounce back year. And he said, you know, Jalen Hurts should give him the ball as many times as he can. What problems do you feel Zach Ertz can give this Falcons defense?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. All tight ends light up when they hear Zach Ertz's name. He's got a lot of respect among his peers, especially as a route runner. Nick Sirianni loves him, and if he doesn't love him, he does a really, really good job of pretending he loves him. Because I just think, remember when he got this job, and I put Jason Michael in the same category. He's the Eagles tight ends coach. They came in thinking they weren't going to have Zach Ertz. They were like everybody else. They didn't think he was going to be here. They knew what was going on. They were told he was not going to be here. And all of a sudden, well, you know, Jason Michael was the one, and I wrote about this on Philly Voice. He was the one who said, well, he's here now. I'm gonna contact him. I'm gonna call him up. I'm gonna try to build a relationship. And he did. And I think that was the genesis of it all, in the fact that it kept, you know, the Eagles were still going to go in the different direction if they got the value they wanted. But all of a sudden, you know, training camp shows up. He's not going to take $50,000 worth of fines, so he's got to show up. And all of a sudden, he's got a relationship with Jason Michael. He's got and Nick Sirianni is always says his first core value is connecting, and they talk to each other before every practice. Now, Nick is one of those guys who goes around and bops around, talks to a lot of players, but he spends a lot of time with Zach Ertz, a lot of time before every practice. They like each other. They get along. And I think he showed up and Nick Sirianni said, oh, I'm going to have this guy. Well, I'm going to shift gears. And I think he's already shifted gears. And I just put it simply. Look, if you guys were an offensive coach and your options were Zach Ertz, Dallas Goedert, or Quez Watkins, one of them's got to come off the field. Who's coming off the field? It's the same thing Doug went through every year. It's nothing against Quez Watkins. I mean, he's got potential. Hopefully he turns into a good player, but you got to put your best players on the field. That's where I think Nick Sirianni is.
It will be very interesting to see how much 12 personnel the Eagles roll out on Sunday, because if you want to go back to Indianapolis, the Colts use a lot of 12 personnel. Yeah, they used different quarterbacks with different styles and different systems, but they were a team. Well, Frank Reich was there to be very willing to go to 12 personnel. So we'll see if the changes come in Nick Sirianni, because some of the organization.
Real quick while I jump in here, Jody. Now, understand, I think the number one team in the NFL ran 12. Jeff might know. I think it was 41, 45%, somewhere in that range. It was under 50%. Look,
yeah, I think it might have been the Eagles. I think they were 37, and I'm trying to remember.
Second. I think Minnesota was first. I think it was 41, somewhere in that range.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, Vikings were up there. They definitely were up there.
You can't play 12, 100, 90% of the time. I mean, just if you, for instance, if you have a play drawn up for Devontae Smith, you want to clear out to get him the football. You want some speed on the field. You want Quez Watkins, so you're gonna have people on the field just to accomplish what you're trying to accomplish. But I think in high leverage situations, key situations, you need a big third down. And it becomes, as my friend Colin Thompson always says, about the Jimmies and Joes, not the X's and O's. You want your best players on the field. And in those high leverage situations, that's what I'm kind of talking about. Who do you want on the field? If Zach Ertz is healthy, and he seems to be, I want Zach Ertz on the field.
Right. And if I didn't break it down analytically well enough, let me try again. As you just pointed out, the Eagles were number 2 in the NFL in the number of 12 play possessions that they ran, just ranking them in the NFL. I think they're going to be in the top 5 again this year, even if it's only 34% of the time that they're actually doing it. The way that they talked during the offseason, it sounded to me like they wanted to get down in the second half of the teams ranked in the NFL, that they wanted to be 4 and 5 wide that much more often this year. I'm just saying I don't think it's going to happen because of Zach Ertz still being here.
Well, they should. I mean, they arguably have the top tight end room in the NFL, so they should play 2 tight ends more than anybody if they have Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert healthy. Now, you're right, and Nick has said this on the record. He wants to play more 11 personnel, but that's where I like Nick Sirianni in that he is malleable. As I said before, he's not going to just play it just to play it. He thought he wasn't going to have those 2 tight ends. He thought he was only going to have 1 top-tier tight end, and in that instance, you probably shift to playing more 11. If Dallas Goedert sprains his ankle in the first quarter and all of a sudden you have to play Jack Stoll, well, no, I think then Quez Watkins gets a high, and I think it shifts. And I think that part is good. I think that part is where Nick Sirianni kind of gets it, and he's not that hard-headed coach that's going to say, this is my game plan. We're not deviating. We'll just put Jack Stoll in for Dallas Goedert and expect him to do Dallas Goedert things. You can't coach like that, and I don't think he is going to coach like that.
John, since I wasn't on last week, I need to know 2 things. Who was your surprise that made the Eagles roster, and who did win the 53-man roster projection pool amongst the beat writers?
I don't even get it. Bo Wolf won.
He wins every year, doesn't he?
3rd straight year. I have a conspiracy theory. For those people who don't know, Bo used to work for the Eagles, so I think he's got somebody in the building looking at how he's now. I'm joking. Now he won. He won fair and square. Bo's a good friend of mine. He won for the 3rd straight year. I'm just jealous. I came in second. It was a 3-way tie between Zach Berman, myself, and Ed Kratz. Bo got 51. We got 49. Who was the biggest surprise to me? I don't know if Jack Stoll was, I guess, the biggest surprise, and I was kicking myself after it because I tell Jody all the time, I always take one undrafted free agent because the ego of the GM comes into it. They love to keep one undrafted free agent saying, look at me, I found this guy. They do it all the time. It's not just Howie. And I went against my own rule because I wanted to keep Tyree Jackson, which they did. But they kept 4 tight ends. I thought they would manipulate it a little bit more. So I kind of out-thunked myself, which is usually what happens in these things.
J-Mac, I'm going to ask you to look in the crystal ball a little bit here. And I hope you see this the optimistic way. I surely want to. I heard Jake Elliott yesterday on WIP. They had a bunch of guys for Eagles Autism for the charity stuff that they're doing. And he's just a flat-out good dude. He's the kind of guy you want to root for. He's a regular guy, and you want him to have another great season. He wasn't all that good last year. He had very little action in preseason because he tweaked something, and that's why Aaron Cepas was kicking off. We just assume he's going to be good because he made some practice kicks in front of you guys in training camp. How big a factor is he for the Eagles this year?
I think Jake is a good kicker. I think he's, probably a little bit middle of the road. If you're going to rate the 32 kickers, he'd probably be in the top half, but lower, 12, 13, 14 range. I think, you could do a lot worse. Everybody wants Tucker, as I mentioned before. I mean, we all want Justin Tucker, and that there's only one. And you've seen some of these teams who just struggle so much to find a kicker. So I think people have to realize it would be nice. And I always joke, Jake's great at everything, ping pong, golf, shooting, 3-point shooting contests. He's going to win everything. Great softball player, phenomenal athlete. Just can't make that 33-yard extra point. The weird thing is he's great from distance, and he occasionally misses the PAT. So obviously, I think it's a mental hiccup. Now it could also be the battery, so to speak. Rick Lovato is one of the best long snappers, but they have had Cam Johnson. Now it's CPOS as the holder. Those holders, man, they are, they can screw things up if they're not perfect. And guys get a mental block. I remember talking to Blair Walsh's father. Jeff will remember Blair Walsh. He was an all-pro as a rookie. He was unbelievable. And then he just lost it. And it's because of the holder. He lost Chris Cluey, was his holder, and he just wasn't the same. And it could be something that simple. I'm not saying that's what happened with Jake Elliott, but kickers are, man, they're mental creatures. They're like, if they get something in their head, it could be difficult. But I don't concern myself too much about Jake Elliott because he's pretty good. Might not be as good as you want, but again, not everybody can have Justin Tucker.
Right.
John, who was that holder in the playoff game where he missed the 29-yard field goal? Do you remember?
That's a good question. I do not remember. I know it wasn't Chris Cluey. I forget who they changed at punter, but that's a kick you should make with the worst holder in the world. So that's the kind of thing, like, all right, you're mentally shaking a little bit, so you still got to make that one.
No, if it comes down on Sunday to a missed kick, we'll be analyzing the holder Monday here on Birds 365. All right, McMullen, go get your test. Catch you back here tomorrow. Get ready for some football by Sunday.
All right, thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
John McMullen, usual co-host with me here on Birds 365, is got to go get half of his life is waiting for the Eagles to start practice and getting tests to be ready to cover the Birds as well. I'm lucky enough to have Jeff Kerr by my side. He's filling in for Johnny Mack. He'll stick around for the hour and hey we got left here on Birds 365. We do have one other guest coming your way, and I was able to get him to agree to hop on last night. You've heard him before here on Birds 365. I hope you've been reading him for decades, Eagle fans. Paul Domwitch, who covered the Birds forever for the Daily News, decided to step away from day in, day out writing this year, heading into the season. He just turned in his retirement papers, took the buyout at the Enquirer. Damo's going to hop aboard. He did his finale column for the paper this week, which I thought was really good. If you haven't read it, you do need to go back and check it out at Enquirer.com, Philly News, Philly.com. Damo is going to join us next hour. Yeah, we're going to have him on from time to time during the year, even though he's not down in practice. He sure as hell can generate an opinion on the Eagles. He certainly knows the organization and this team enough. Paul Domowitch going to join us next hour. We come back. I got a couple of more leading into Sunday's game against the Falcons things to give to Jeff Kerr next year on Birds 365.
Hey, Eagles fans, if you're a subscriber to the JAKIB Media YouTube channel, you are already registered to win a pair of season tickets for the upcoming season. That's right, you could win a pair of season tickets for the upcoming 2021 season just for being a subscriber. If you're watching and you're not a subscriber, do it now. Subscribe to the JAKIB Media YouTube channel right now. What do you need to do? Subscribe right now.
As a hard-working American, you've never experienced how tough life can be until now. A catastrophic injury while working on the job. a personal injury from someone else's negligence, turned away by other law firms in the region who didn't bother to learn your story. It's time to meet the Fritz and Beyond Cooley Law Firm and managing partner Brian Fritz. Badly injured? Call the Fritz and Beyond Cooley Law Firm. Find out why they say, "We got this."
The International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local Union 98, is a proud sponsor of The Labor Show with J. Doc and Krause every Saturday night from 6 till 8 p.m. IBEW Local 98's highly trained and superbly skilled electricians are the best in the business, setting the highest safety standards in the electrical industry. So when you're planning your next industrial, commercial, or residential project, choose an IBEW Local 98 union contractor. Learn more at ibew98.org.
The savoring taste of a good bag of beef jerky is so enjoyable at any time of the day, as long as you can find it. Here's what we suggest. Pure Bull Beef Jerky is our answer, and soon it will be yours. Locally produced in the Philadelphia region, this high-quality, healthy protein snack is easy to secure. Go to steersnacks.com, and you'll see hot garlic, tropical heat, Pure Bull dry rub, and our favorite, Huck and Fod. What's that? Huck and Fod. Go now to steersnacks.com.
I get scared sometimes.
Of a lot of things.
Joining in.
Decisions.
The dark.
The dark.
But I once heard someone say,
But as I always say,
it's okay to be afraid.
as long as you face the fear.
And keep moving forward.
Wherever you are in life, count on the name trusted in insurance for over 80 years. Independence Blue Cross.
On the field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
7 on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
It is a game week edition of Birds 365. That's right, Eagle fans. It all gets underway on Sunday when the Birds head down to Atlanta to take on the Falcons. We'll get you right up till kickoff. And then remember, on game day, new show here on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel, the Eagles post-game show with our boy D. Gunn, Mark Farzetta, Johnny Mack will be part of it, and Lane Johnson scheduled to contribute as well. So after the game, to be right back here on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel after the Eagles open up with a win or a loss, Jeff Carr. Are the Birds starting this one off with a big on-the-road W, or, that Sirianni guy's got to go?
So I got asked this question from my sister of all people last night, because my father-in-law wanted to know, because he's doing his pools this week, and he goes, should I pick the Eagles? And because I don't know anything about them. And I said, the Falcons really aren't a good football team. Not saying the Eagles are, but the Falcons aren't. So I said, you know what? It's week 1. I would pick the Eagles. I think the Eagles should beat this team. I feel this is a must-win game for the Eagles. So this is what I'm looking at. And I feel if the Eagles can run the ball and contain the Lance pass rush, which they should be able to, the Falcons' offensive line isn't good. I mean, they spent a lot of first-round picks on their offensive line in recent years, but it hasn't been good. I feel the Eagles can hold this team. If it's a shootout, I think the Falcons win. But I think the Eagles can hold this team to 20 points. I think 23 could get enough for the Eagles. So I'm going to pick Philadelphia, which, by the way, Jody, I think this is funny. Broadcasters and the ones I talk to actually keep track of, the teams they cover and their records. And I'm going to ask Tony Romo about this tonight, because I'm pretty sure the Browns have never won a game that Tony Romo's covered. So that's why I'm going with the Chiefs in that game. But Kevin Burkhardt's doing the Eagles game Sunday, and he's like, oh, yeah, we're like 10-6 again, covering Eagles games. And I'm like, okay, so yeah, I guess that's a good omen if you go by that route.
Do you did you say that the team knows it or the announcers know it?
The announcers know it, apparently.
Really?
I think fans tell them on Twitter, But I know Burkhardt's pretty active on Twitter, but I'm pretty sure Romo it's been mentioned to Romo before. And again, it's not like Jim Nantz and Tony Romo call Browns games all the time, but I'm pretty sure Browns fans are well aware that they never won a game that Tony Romo calls.
Let me tie a couple things in here, and then I want to get back to your point about the Eagles and their possibility of winning this week. The reason why I know that your statement is accurate is I'm pretty good friends with Iron Eagle, that I think most Birds 365 fans will recognize the name, calls NFL games, does the AFC, is on CBS, so Eagles don't get them all together that often, but does basketball and college basketball, the tournament and everything else. So I think people know Iron Eagle. He's a good friend, and he comes on my radio shows whenever I ask. And he has told me a couple of times they kill him when he goes to Cleveland. When he goes to Cleveland, they just crush him. Because let's be honest, and I think the Browns actually have a chance to go to a Super Bowl this year. I think they're that good a team. I think it's the top three: Kansas City, Buffalo, Cleveland, and then a drop-off. I think those three kind of open it up against everybody else in the AFC. Then there's a drop-off. So Cleveland fans, don't get mad at me because I point out that your team stunk for a whole bunch of years over the last 10 or 12 that Ian's been calling games for CBS. So he says every time he goes to Cleveland, there's people that are waiting for him. He gets an Uber or a taxi or whatever else outside the press gate. Oh, Eagle, go home. You stink. We got no chance if you're here. You're the worst. And he says he gets crushed every time he goes to the stadium in Cleveland. He said he was hoping to get more Cleveland games this year because they actually have a chance to win a bunch and maybe can win some hearts and minds in Cleveland. You mentioned Tony Romo, and you're going to get a chance to talk to him. I want to smack Tony Romo upside the head because he did the Jets no justice this week. And Eagle fans should like Tony Romo. I know they don't, just because on principle he's a Cowboy quarterback still, but he did say he thinks the Eagles are one of the more underrated teams in the NFL. But what got my goat with him was he compared the Jets rookie quarterback.
Oh, I was there.
to Patrick Mahomes. Mahomes, he hasn't thrown a pass in the National Football League yet, and he's already comparing him to Mahomes and saying, you know, you can get very quickly into that top 3 to 5 quarterback in the NFL range. Nothing like setting the bar too high for him, Tony. Thank you very much. Do you really have to go there? That hurt Romo's credibility in my eyes a little bit because he just sounded like one of those guys who was instructed, say something that'll get some attention. And that's what he chose to say. And he just absolutely put Zach Wilson in a pressure cooker.
So I got to set the scene for that, right? It was really funny. So I'm in on this conference call. I'm representing CBS on the media conference call. And the AFC East gets brought up. And, you know, he sees my eyes just light up. And he goes, oh, there's a story for you. You know, like that type of thing. As soon as he said, he was just raving about Josh Allen and the Bills. And all of a sudden he goes to the Jets. And I'm like, what? I'm like, okay, Tony. I'm like, so I should invest all my fantasy stock in Zach Wilson this year in the 15th round, and we'll go from there. But I've never seen two quarterbacks Tony Romo talk about more right now than Patrick Mahomes is one. He loves Patrick Mahomes and Zach Wilson now, and yeah, that was definitely an eye opener, Jody. You were one of the people I thought of. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm sure Jets fans are just gonna love the Romo kiss of death there. But yeah, it was last week was definitely interesting when he said that. And I know a couple guys, they kind of, their eyes lit up on that one. And I'm like, wow, I wonder who's going to get the story out first here on that. Because he kind of let slip a bit, like, over the whole Wilson Mahomes. Like, I don't think people notice it at first unless the people on the Zoom call that were just kind of like, okay, that type of thing. But then, yeah, and then Jim Nantz, he kind of, he didn't go that far when Zach Wilson, but he said he was a big fan of Zach Wilson too. It does look like they're going to do a couple Jets games this year because of that.
Wouldn't be surprised if that's the case. And if you're an Eagle fan and you do or don't want to hear from Tony Romo, and again, you're not going to get him calling that many games because he is an AFC guy over on CBS. He did say they were going to be one of the more underrated teams in the NFL. And yes, although I always laugh when this is the case, Eagle fans will tell you, oh, those Cowboy announcers, all they do is tell you about how great the Cowboys are. No, that's not true. I think Troy Aikman has been calling it down the middle since he started doing it, sneaking up on 20 years ago now. He's been CBS's guy for over a decade. Moose Johnston, same thing. Moose Johnson, as a matter of fact, would every once in a while open my ears by actually condemning the Cowboys and saying the Cowboys were playing lousy type football. It's just an inbred belief that any Cowboy can't say anything but nice things about the Cowboys and lousy things about the Eagles. Tony Romo calling the Eagles one of the more underrated teams in the NFC. I don't think should come as a surprise to anybody. And if you're an Eagle fan, should you like it or should it just annoy you that much more?
Yeah, it was funny, Joey. I was actually the one who asked him that question on the conference call, and I was only allowed to get 2 of them. So I'm like, well, I'm going to make this local here. And, it was more about, just how I felt they were going to be, like, not overall, but, just kind of what are his expectations. And he's going, 10, 11 wins. He thinks Nick Sirianni is a great football coach. That was one. And he said, look, we don't know if the guy can coach, but he goes, I'll tell you what, he's a brilliant football mind. He's a teacher. He really went off on that team. And he said, look, this is Jalen Hurts' opportunity to really show the Eagles something. He thinks he's going to, and he gave a lot of praise toward Jeffrey Lurie and the stability of the organization. He goes, when they stink, they don't stink long. And he said that's one thing that he's always respected about the Eagles from afar. And you're right about the Cowboys thing. Like, he'll praise Dak Prescott. He loves Dak. But that team, I don't think he's sold on them completely. He said, if I had to pick a division winner, he said it probably isn't Dallas at this point because he was worried about their defense. He's worried about their offensive line. But he said, Dak can win that division by himself. But he said he don't know about the mobility and everything like that. So, yeah, you were definitely right with the Cowboys thing. I remember I used to joke when I was in college. This is back when, they would go – Fox would take their pregame show on the road, and Joe Buck would profoundly declare his Cowboys love. And I'm like, it's ironic how Aikman is the unbiased one, and he played for him. And Buck definitely puts his Cowboy hat on whenever he calls their games. He gets a little more excited. He always got pretty excited when T.O. would score a touchdown for the Cowboys. So I agree with you 100% there, Jody.
All right. Last night I couldn't pay as strict attention to certain things on TV that I wanted to. I was on the air in New York. So I had to stay on top of the Yankee game. I had to stay on top of the Met game. Of course, I watched the Phillies get their tails kicked as well, which means I didn't get a chance to watch Hard Knocks yet. I've got it on the VCR and the VCR. I'll download it after this show is over this morning. You got a chance to watch it. I know you and I haven't discussed this. I did with Johnny Mack. What are your thoughts on the entire season? Tonight's the final episode, and we'll see how they wrap things up. But what have you thought about this Cowboy appearance on Hard Knocks?
From the 3 episodes I've seen, I hadn't seen last week's yet. I've been, it's one of those I should have got to it before. I'm going to watch the last 2 back to back. But overall, I just have not been impressed from the 3 episodes I saw. I thought the most exciting part of Hard Knocks was the first 5 minutes of the first episode with Dak pulling his ankle. And I'm like, oh, this is going to be awesome. This is going to be great. This is the lead-in. No, we got Dak and Zeke's birthday and – and again, Hard Knocks is supposed to be about, the ins and outs of training camp. I don't know how much Jerry Lemon. I think the most interesting thing I learned from Hard Knocks is, and again, I think Jerry Jones is senile to begin with. He puts salt on the McGriddle. You don't need that.
I would tend to agree with you there. I'm a huge fan of the show. I said it before it started this year. Always have been, probably always will be. This has been a disappointing year. And it basically comes down to the personality of the players that are featured. And they shoot hundreds, if not thousands of hours of video and then have to go through it pretty damn quickly and be able to make the call. Because you see, they got 24 at most, 48-hour turnaround, and they got to have this thing up and running. So it isn't an easy task. I know how difficult a television production it is. They just don't. The Cowboys don't have personable players. Dak is pretty boring. Zeke Elliott is kind of goofy. They don't have any guys that are going to stir the pot or move the needle. I think it's actually been a pretty darn boring year of Hard Knocks. We'll see if they can finish it on a high note. I haven't been able to watch this week's episode. And part of it is if you've got a really good football team. And this, again, you kind of nodded to this, that how much are they allowed to use? The NFL team does have say on what can and can't be used. They haven't shown me anything, either personality-wise and or on the field. I know the one-loss record is irrelevant, but they didn't do anything in any of their preseason games either that would make you go, all right, well, I got to keep my eye on that guy. I got to see this aspect of the Cowboys. I've been tremendously underimpressed by the Cowboys this preseason.
Now, if there's a player, I think they tried to make something out of nothing, and that's Micah Parsons. And Micah Parsons is a stud. Don't get me wrong here. But I've been trying to tell people this. This guy he's like Devonta Smith. He just puts his pail, he gets his work pail, and he works. That's literally what the guy does. He knows he's a good football player. He knows he's going to be a difference maker. He's not going to be flashy. He's not going to be a diva or anything like that. And I think, in a way, Hard Knocks tried to make him like that because of, some questionable behavior at Penn State. But, it was one of those things where I'm like, look, this guy, when he's on the football field, he's about one thing only, and that's making the tackle and making a play. And, again, everybody goes, well, what's so great about a player that wants to play more in the preseason? I'm like, well, see, you're trying to make something out of nothing there. He doesn't understand because he's a rookie why I'm not on the football field, because I am literally the most important part of that defense.
Yeah, as you said, there were some whispers and rumors about him, and that might be why he dropped a little bit in the draft. It wasn't like he dropped down to the second round. He dropped down out of the top 10, and some people thought he was going to go higher than that. He just seems too boring to me to be that kind of a trouble guy.
The whole team's boring. It's like the Eagles. Like, we all like Jalen Hurts and Devonta Smith, and they're football players, but and this is what I kind of like about them. They are boring. They're not flamboyant. It's, their highlight plays are going to be on the football field, not actual quotes. There aren't too many like quotable guys right now in the NFC. Maybe Ryan Fitzpatrick will eventually be because he's in the division, but overall, I'll tell you where Hard Knocks should have went, Jody. The Giants. That's the camp they should have went to.
Yeah, Joe Judge did stir the pot this preseason, getting guys to quit on him, retire before the season ever started. That was that could have played out pretty damn interesting. You're right about that. But their boring thing is, and again, I was on in the air in New York last night. I talked to my buddy Paul Schwartz, who covers the Giants. They don't know if Saquon Barkley's going to play this week. We're now 4 days away. He hasn't been roughed up in practice. Joe Judge was on record as saying, I'm not going to play him if he hadn't taken a hit all preseason. Well, he hasn't. He didn't play in any of the preseason games, any of the joint practices. So if he's going to get hit, he's going to get hit by his own teammates, which I'm going to predict here they don't hit him real hard. So he's going into the first game of the season without having taken a hit in basically a year. I got no idea what Saquon's going to do this year. Do you?
I drafted him in fantasy, but I got him late, so in the first round. So I'm kind of hoping he does something as a Penn Stater, but overall, I really don't know what to expect out of this guy. Like, he wasn't playing well before he had the knee injury last year. And again, I don't know how it's going to affect his mobility. I think he's going to be an excellent pass catcher out of the backfield for them, but I think their offense revives around Saquon Barkley and what he can do as a runner, as a pass catcher. He just opens up so much for Kenny Golladay, for Sterling Shepard, for Evan Ingram, for Darius Slayton. That offensive line all of a sudden looks better because Saquon Barkley's catching the ball out of the backfield and making plays. But yeah, if he's not 100%, the Giants they really have to be concerned. I think they were really banking on him to be ready week 1, and I think if he plays, he's going to be limited.
Let's stay with Penn State running backs. If we kept Johnny a little bit longer, that would have been the next question. I asked him about Miles Sanders. We're a couple now weeks removed from key practices that the Eagles had against the other teams, which they actually put more of an emphasis on than the preseason games. That's easy to do when you get beaten 35-0 by the Patriots and go, yeah. Well, we were not worried about it. We won those 2 practices during the week. That's why they were as important, if not more important, than the actual game. Miles Sanders hasn't had a knockdown, breakout type camp year. The guys who are there every single day continue to note that he seemed to drop a ball or two coming out of the backfield a day, that despite the fact that he's putting a ton of work in on the sides with Jug's machine, it's not coming from lack of effort, but he just has the dropsies, kind of like the yips in golf. They only kept 3 running backs on this roster, which means the rotation that they're going to use is not going to be all that deep. I think Byron Scott is good at what he does, but you're not talking about 50-50 split here. If you're looking at Byron Scott and Miles Sanders, it's going to be more like 2/3, 1/3 at best, and Gainwell's going to get in and try and get the ball out of the backfield. And when they have the 2 backs in the game on any given plays, I think that'll be some of the more exciting stuff that the Eagles run this year. Mr. Penn State, how much confidence do you have in your guy, Miles Sanders, having a big year for the Birds?
As a runner, I think he's going to be a home run hitter again. I mean, the guy had 2, 3, 70-plus yard runs last year. I think he's really going to provide the home run threat for them. But I was extremely disappointed in him catching the football last year and him basically not being a receiving threat out of the backfield. Boston Scott was a better receiver than Miles Sanders last year, which is kind of insane after his rookie year. I thought Sanders would elevate on that, not getting to Alvin Kamara, Christian McCaffrey levels, but I figured, okay, this is going to be a guy you're going to rely on to catch the ball 50, 60 times a year and get about 500, 600 yards every single year. And we just didn't see that last year. And that's the part of Miles Sanders' game I really want to see. I know the guy can rush for 1,000 yards if you give him that ability. And everybody goes, well, what about the negative plays? I'm like, well, look, this is why they call the yards per carry average. Amongst running backs, he was top 3 last year. That's why they call it an average. So I'm not even worried about the yards per carry or the big plays or any of that. If he gets the ball, he's going to make plays, especially behind this offensive line. I mean, he did it last year with the worst offensive line in football. So what's he going to do this year now that all the guys are back? I think he'll be fine there. But you're right. The pass catching is – Jalen Hurts needs this out of Miles Sanders, or else he's not going to be playing in certain packages. If they want to run 21 speed, they may go Gainwell and Scott because they're just better at, outside the hash marks catching a football. And Miles Sanders just has to get better at that in his game. And for me, the best way to get him going is to set up screens and, kind of use what the Colts did a little bit. But there's a play I feel the Eagles can really excel with Sanders in, and that's the wheel route. And if he can get his hands on the football and get in open space, this guy's going to have a lot more big plays this year. So he definitely has to be a good pass catcher out of the backfield.
All right, Eagle fans, don't get carried away. I'm not comparing these 2 players across the board, but in something Jeff just said, it made me think of a specific NFL back. The fact that, yes, Miles Sanders from time to time has a negative play, that he'll get caught behind the line of scrimmage and then before you know, boom, he breaks off and goes 70 yards. So that gets his average yards per carry up as high as it does. That immediately, anytime anyone describes a back like that, what it immediately makes me think of?
Is it Barry Sanders?
Barry Sanders. Barry Sanders would dance behind the line of scrimmage and they'd get 2-yard loss and 1-yard gain. Oops, there he goes for 45. That was Barry Sanders. So, yes, you trade off the occasional, what the hell was he doing? Why didn't he hit the hole? Why didn't he get up in there? What the hell is he doing dancing? Well, you're right. Sometimes dancing you get caught, but sometimes dancing gets you on the outside and gives you the chance to make the big play. So I don't quite understand why people get as bent out of shape about that as they do.
I used to get upset when I was a kid watching Lions games. They always took Barry Sanders. It was definitely a Wayne Font special. He always would take Barry Sanders out inside the 20. I'm like, this is the stupidest thing you could possibly do. He's the best running back in football, and you take him off the field because he dances too much and you're afraid he's not going to score a touchdown. He still would find ways to score touchdowns. I think there was a game against the Eagles where he kind of danced around like William Fuller and guys like that and was able to find a way to get into the end zone. It looked like he was going to be tackled for a 5-yard loss, and he does a juke or two. It's clearly field vision, score. So, again, I don't know what the Lions were thinking all those years with him. No wonder why he quit as early as he did.
All right, he is Jeff Kerr. I'm Jody McDonald. We're your Birds 365, guys. Don't forget, coming up next hour, about 20 minutes or so from now, we're going to get our buddy Paul Domowitch, formerly of the Daily News, NFL Hall of Fame voter, has only been covering the Birds for 3 decades. We'll get Domo up here in hour number 2. Keep it right here. It's coming up next here on Birds 365.
Hey, Eagles fans, if you're a subscriber to the JAKIB Media YouTube channel, you are already registered to win a pair of season tickets for the upcoming season. That's right, you could win a pair of season tickets for the upcoming 2021 season just for being a subscriber. If you're watching and you're not a subscriber, do it now. Subscribe to the JAKIB Media YouTube channel right now. What do you need to do? Subscribe right now.
As a hard-working American, you've never experienced how tough life can be until now. A catastrophic injury while working on the job. A personal injury from someone else's negligence. Turned away by other law firms in the region who didn't bother to learn your story. It's time to meet the Fritz & Beyond Cooley Law Firm and managing partner Brian Fritz. Badly injured? Call the Fritz & Beyond Cooley Law Firm. Find out why they say, "We got this."
The International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local Union 98, is a proud sponsor of The Labor Show with J. and Krause every Saturday night from 6 till 8 p.m. IBEW Local 98's highly trained and superbly skilled electricians are the best in the business, setting the highest safety standards in the electrical industry. So when you're planning your next industrial, commercial, or residential project, choose an IBEW Local 98 union contractor. Learn more at IBEW98.org.
The savoring taste of a good bag of beef jerky is so enjoyable at any time of the day, as long as you can find it. Here's what we suggest. Pure Bull beef jerky is our answer, and soon it will be yours. Locally produced in the Philadelphia region, this high-quality, healthy protein snack is easy to secure. Go to steersnacks.com, and you'll see hot garlic, tropical heat, Pure Bull dry rub, and our favorite, Huck and Fod. What's that? Huck and Fod. Go now to steersnacks.com.
I get scared sometimes.
Of a lot of things.
Joining in.
Decisions.
The dark.
The dark.
But I once heard someone say,
But as I always say,
it's okay to be afraid.
as long as you face the fear.
And keep moving forward.
Wherever you are in life, count on the name trusted in insurance for over 80 years. Independence Blue Cross.
On the field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on three. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
It is Birds 365. You got Jody Mack and Jeff Kerr in for John McMullen. In case you missed John McMullen, well, you got to go back. You can always rewatch it, right? That's the beauty of YouTube. If you don't get on exactly when we're doing it live, it's there forever. You can always go back and watch it. And Johnny Mack was almost at the top of the show. He's got COVID testing responsibilities today, so that's why he was with us right off the bat. But Jeff has been hanging with me and will hang with me here for hour number 2. Paul Domwitch is going to join us in less than 20 minutes now. So stick around for Domo, who did an outstanding final column this week. I do want to ask Domo about it because I think it's got to be one of the hardest columns you ever write, but it's also one of the easiest columns you ever write because you've been prepping for it your entire life. You know it's coming at some point. So you're going to, well, we'll get into that with Domo when he gets here. But back to the Birds. Jeff, they open up in Atlanta this week. You mentioned earlier that you don't think the Falcons are going to be all that good a team this year. Nor do I. I made my official predictions on all the teams in the National Football League this week. And I have the Falcons with one of the worst records. That's one of the reasons why I think the Eagles can have a decent record this year is it's tough to win games on the road in the National Football League. But they've got both the Falcons and the Lions on the road this year. If there are road games you can win, it's against Atlanta and Detroit because I think they're going to be two of the worst teams in the NFC this season. So that plays to the Eagles' advantage. The first ever game of the Nick Sirianni era is going to be on the road. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Well, the Eagles don't have a good history of opening seasons in Atlanta, do they, Jody? Because 2015, I thought they were going to roll over a Falcons team with Sam Bradford, and remember they had that exciting preseason with Chip Kelly, and yeah, that didn't go over too well. And in my opinion, they got upset that game, and it kind of set the tone for the season. And same with 2005. Remember the whole Jeremiah Trotter got ejected, and Don McNabb got speared on a cheap shot, and Eagles ended up losing that Monday Night Football game. And I'm like, well, that's not exactly a great sign for a team.
That's right. It was a Monday nighter. I forgot about that. Yeah.
I kept saying to myself, that's not a great sign for a team that won 4 straight NFC East titles, made 4 straight conference championship appearances, and all this offseason drama. I thought they needed that game, and lo and behold, they go 6-10. So I hate when the Eagles open in Atlanta. It seems like they always open here in Atlanta or they play the Falcons. I feel like it's a once in every 3-year tradition at this point. Schedule makers are getting lazy. But, yeah, this is a game they have to win. And, I was doing some prep for the Falcons this week, and I was kind of laughing at myself. I'm like, who's on this defense that I know? And a lot of those guys left. The Keanu Neals of the world. He's on the Cowboys because Dan Quinn's not there anymore. Vic Beasley has been gone for a while now. And, Grady Jarrett's still there. But overall, this defense should not be good. And I know we like to not talk great about the Eagles wide receivers, but they should have Devonta Smith and Quez Watkins and Jalen Reagor. They probably should have a good day against this secondary. And again, the offensive line just beats out the Falcons' defense. There are 4 guys I worry about on this team, and unfortunately, it might be the Eagles' biggest weakness, at least on defense. And this is crazy because their linebackers are actually pretty good. So Matt Ryan, Kyle Pitts, Calvin Ridley, Russell Gage. Those are the 4 guys I worry about on this Falcons team, and they can beat you.
Understood. And you made the Grady Jarrett point. He has been one of their defensive stalwarts for the last several years. And I would, the NFL had its top 100 player ranking that on the NFL Network, the Eagles did okay. They actually landed 3 guys, Fletcher Cox, Jason Kelsey, and Brandon Graham. They took an O for ESPN, their top 100. So make of that what you will. But Grady Jarrett was on both outlets top 100 because he is one of the better DTs and can get pressure onto the quarterback from the interior line. There's a reason he doesn't scare me and this may be some wishful thinking, but sorry, that's what I'm going to do leading into the kickoff for the Eagles season. The interior of the Eagles line is a strength. That's not where I think the Eagles are going to get beat up this year. You've got perennial Pro Bowler snapping the football, and you got 2 damn good guards. We'll see what Brandon Brooks comes back at. From everything that's being reported, he looks as athletic and sturdy and ready to go as before his most recent injury. And Isaac Seumalo's damn good left guard if they're going to move him around on that defensive line. I do not think that's going to be a problem with the Eagles this year, handling other teams' good DTs. I think they're going to be able to do that because the guys they got on the offensive line.
Yeah, I agree. And that's the thing. I think that's going to be the huge difference in this game. Even if Jalen Hurts does get pressured, I think he's going to be able to run away from it because I don't know if anybody on the Falcons can actually stop him. Look, this could be like one of those games where, and we saw this a lot last year, Jody, when Jalen Hurts just kind of went off. I know I'm going a little bit fantasy-wise here, but overall, he threw for 300 yards and rushed for 60 yards in 2 of his 4 starts and 2 of his 3 full starts. It's insane to think he could have a big stat game on Sunday. And because I just don't know if there's anybody on this Falcons team that could stop. Now, again, they could surprise me completely. And again, I do think Arthur Smith is a really good football coach. I think he's a great offensive mind. But I kind of leveled off on this Falcons team a bit. I thought they could have been a surprise. And then they traded Julio Jones. And I'm like, what are you doing? Why do you draft Kyle Pitts if you're going to get rid of Julio Jones? And they said they knew about, okay, fine. Why do you still draft Kyle Pitts? Why don't you just reset the franchise? I know Matt Ryan's a franchise quarterback, but you could have got something for him. It's not like he's a bad football player by any stretch of the imagination. In my opinion, he's still a top 10 quarterback. He just is the quarterback for the Falcons. So they just made a lot of questionable decisions since that Super Bowl loss, Jody. And I don't know. again, this is why I'm so high on Tampa Bay this year, is because who's going to beat them in that division?
No, I made my prediction over the weekend. I got them written down here somewhere. I had Tampa winning the division by like a minimum of 4 games. If they're going to win 12, I don't think there's another team that's going to be above 500 in this division. I think everybody's going to be below. I think New Orleans is below 500. I think Atlanta's bad. I think Carolina's got a chance to be as good. I don't know about that much better with Sam Darnold over Teddy Bridgewater. I do like Matt Rule, and I think he's a real good fan. I'll say this about the Panthers, and I know we're getting a little far afield. We'll come back to the Birds here in a second. They lost so many games that hung in the balance last year. The Panthers were within 1 score in the fourth quarter, I think, of 14 out of their 16 games. I think there was only 2 games where they were behind by 8 points, 9 points or more in the fourth quarter, and never got any closer than that. They just didn't know how to finish. If you're a Carolina fan or a Matt Rule fan, you just believe, well, they're going to be better at it this year. I hope that's the case, because I like Matt Rule as much as I do. I don't know that that's the case. That's why I got Carolina back under 500 again. I think you're dead on right. I think it's a weak division the Falcons are in.
Yeah, and in a way, if you're a Panthers fan, and I know we're going a little bit off topic here, but it kind of feels like the 2016 Eagles. Remember, they lost a bunch of 1-score games. I think they were like 1-7, 1-8, 1-score game. And then all of a sudden, the next year, boom, they go 13-3 and they win the Super Bowl. I'm not saying Carolina's going to do that, because the Saints in 2009 and the Eagles in 2017 are the only 2 teams since realignment to finish last in the division the year prior and then win the Super Bowl. But, I mean, if Sam Darnold is what they think he can be with that offense, and Terrence Marshall, I think, is going to be a stud, by the way. Carolina could surprise some people, but they're not beating Tampa in that division. That's the thing. When everybody was like kind of writing off Tampa Bay after they lost to Kansas City and went to the bye week, I'm like, hold on a second. You got Atlanta twice. You got Detroit. You got Carolina. They're going to be completely fine. They're going to make the playoffs. They're not going to miss it. And it might be a springboard to something. And lo and behold, they won the Super Bowl. So, yeah, I'm not a big fan of that NFC South. I'm honestly not a big fan of any NFC division outside of the NFC West this year.
Yeah, I think the NFC West does kind of lap over all 3 of the other divisions. You made the point about the 2016 and the 2017 Eagles. I talked to enough Eagle fans when I do my radio shows to know that I had no idea there were so many fans that before that year started knew the Eagles were going to win the Super Bowl, because I don't quite remember it that way. It did kind of come out of left field. And more power to the Eagles for being able to pull that off Doug Peterson at all. But they weren't. Nobody was talking about a Super Bowl before 2017 started. That's just the way it played out, which was probably pretty damn exciting if you're an Eagles fan, if you've been an Eagle fan for 2 years, 10 years, 20 years, 40 years, 60 years. The way that it played out, I would think would be more exciting.
Yeah,
Should the Eagle fans go down that road again? Because they're coming from last to first again if they're going to make a run. It was as cool and as uplifting as out of left field as it was. That's one of the beauties of the National Football League, is that you can just turn the page when the season's over and sprinkle optimism all over everything the next year. If Eagle fans are talking Super Bowl this year, should we try and reel them in, or just say, hey, yeah, you're right. Nobody picked 2017 a couple of years ago.
So maybe not Super Bowl, but I'm going to get Eagles fans really excited here, because I like to do that stuff with teams. And because this is week 1, did you know every time since realignment the Eagles finished last in the NFC East, the next year they finished first? Every single time. So it would not shock me if they won the NFC East this year, because this division is not good. Washington is my pick to win the East. And I know I'm going out on a limb here, picking a repeat NFC East champion, but I really like their defense. But if I'm worried about Washington, I don't know Ryan Fitzpatrick could play 17 games this season. I don't know if he can make the playoffs. He's never made the playoffs before in his life, so why make it in year 17, right? Dallas is Dallas. They always seem to find a way to bite themselves in the foot. The Giants, I think, are actually going to be the last place team in the NFC East. I'm not a fan of that football team at all because of Daniel Jones and their offensive line, even though their defense is really, really good. And And again, the Eagles are an unknown, and they have a new head coach. They have a quarterback who I think is a winner, and I think ultimately he can get them 8-9 wins if he plays well. It all depends on how the offensive line goes and how the defensive line goes, and how much pressure the defensive line can get on the quarterback, Jody. So this is what I'm looking at right now.
Sounded like I'm sorry if I interrupted you, Jeff. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, no. I was just about to finish out. Like, I just would not be surprised if Philadelphia would win the division this year just based on history. 2016, 2012. What was the other year? 2007. No, it wasn't that. 2005. So, yeah, every time Eagles finish last in the division, or they make the playoffs the next year and win the division. It's actually crazy.
So it's been the last 3 times the Eagles have finished last. The previous year, they've turned around and won the division the year after.
Yeah.
It's pretty good stat. It's not trending from one year to the next. It's over a lengthy period of time, but 3 for 3 is 3 for 3. Anytime you're 3 for 3 at anything, that's usually a pretty darn good sign. All right, he is Jeff Kerr. I'm Jody McDonald. We are the Birds 365 guys today. Coming up next, we're hoping to be joined by Paul Domwitch, who's only been covering this team for 3 decades. He is the Hall of Fame voter and plans on staying that this year. Got a bunch of things we want to talk to Domo about. The fact that he wrote his last column for the Daily News this past week, and what he's going to be doing on Sundays this year. So because he doesn't have to be down at the ballpark each and every single week. I think he's got some grandpa duties, which he's looking forward to. But we'll talk Eagles football with Paul Domowitch next here on Birds 365.
Hey, Eagles fans, if you're a subscriber to the JAKIB Media YouTube channel, you are already registered to win a pair of season tickets for the upcoming season. That's right, you could win a pair of season tickets for the upcoming 2021 season just for being a subscriber. If you're watching and you're not a subscriber, do it now. Subscribe to the JAKIB Media YouTube channel right now. What do you need to do? Subscribe right now.
As a hard-working American, you've never experienced how tough life can be until now. A catastrophic injury while working on the job. A personal injury from someone else's negligence. Turned away by other law firms in the region who didn't bother to learn your story. It's time to meet the Fritz & Beyond Cooley Law Firm and managing partner Brian Fritz. Badly injured? Call the Fritz & Beyond Cooley Law Firm. Find out why they say, "We got this."
The International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local Union 98, is a proud sponsor of The Labor Show with J. and Krause every Saturday night from 6 till 8 p.m. IBEW Local 98's highly trained and superbly skilled electricians are the best in the business, setting the highest safety standards in the electrical industry. So when you're planning your next industrial, commercial, or residential project, choose an IBEW Local 98 union contractor. Learn more at IBEW98.org.
The savoring taste of a good bag of beef jerky is so enjoyable at any time of the day, as long as you can find it. Here's what we suggest. Pure Bull Beef Jerky is our answer, and soon it will be yours. Locally produced in the Philadelphia region, this high-quality, healthy protein snack is easy to secure. Go to steersnacks.com, and you'll see hot garlic, tropical heat, Pure Bull dry rub, and our favorite, Huck and Fod. What's that? Huck and Fod. Go now to steersnacks.com.
I get scared sometimes.
Of a lot of things.
Joining in.
Decisions.
The dark.
The dark.
But I once heard someone say,
But as I always say,
it's okay to be afraid.
as long as you face the fear.
And keep moving forward.
Wherever you are in life, count on the name trusted in insurance for over 80 years. Independence Blue Cross.
On the field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Birds 365 here on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel. Thanks for tuning in. Jeff Kerr sitting in for Johnny Mack, who's got Eagle testing duties. No, he's not going to be out running 40s. He's got to make sure he's got no COVID action going. So Jeff Kerr sits in for him with me, Jody Mack. And we're lucky to have sitting in with us for another segment. He's been on with us a couple times before. And even though he's kind of stepping back, not stepping away, just stepping back, doesn't mean we aren't going to suck him in whenever we need good insight. Paul Domowitch joins us here on Birds 365. How you doing, Grandpa?
Good. How are you guys doing?
Can't complain, Paul. Happy retirement, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
With your retirement, how are you going to get used to just not having to get up, get into that routine every single week? You know what time you got to get up. You know what time you got to get to the park. You know you got to beat the traffic. It becomes rote. I know I used to do it, not for the Eagles, but you get into a rhythm of going to work and getting things done on time every single day. What the hell are you going to do with your Sundays now?
It's going to be odd. I'm really looking anxious to see how I react on Sunday to getting up. And, first of all, I won't be in Atlanta, so I won't be getting up in a hotel room. But, watching a game and not having to file after it's over, it's going to be weird. But I'll probably figure out a way to survive.
Well, when was the last time you could say you watched, any NFL game as a fan? Was it like recently, or how's it going to be different for you?
Well, I'll be watching with my wife, which hasn't happened except for the one game when I forget what year it was, when I had the emergency hip replacement surgery and missed a game against the Giants in December one year, right before Christmas. Aside from that, it's different. I guess maybe last year kind of helped me assimilate into this because of the fact that I covered all of last season, pretty much all of last season from my couch or my office. So that kind of has helped. We'll see how it goes.
You're right. You got a little primer of retirement by being able to do as much as you had to do last year remotely. You've been watching the Birds with a critical eye for decades, and you watch every single game, and you're not only figuring out what the next column's going to be like, but how this is going to play out the season. Do you think you can just remove yourself and sit back and enjoy it and not have that same critical thinking that you've been putting forth for decades?
It's going to be tough. There is social media, so I don't want to be a nuisance on there and force my opinion down people's throats. So, but I'm sure I'll tweet a few times during the game. Probably not as much as Les will, but that's going to be the toughest part of this. Just kind of being an observer and not being able to write about it when it's over. For all the extra hours that means in our business, I'm going to miss it, and it's going to be tough.
Well, are you still going to do, obviously the Hall of Fame voting stuff I figure you're going to be a part of, but, if they meet, down in L.A. for the Super Bowl or something, would you go to the Super Bowl, that type of thing?
Probably for the Hall of Fame vote, yeah. I just need to, do enough writing. If you completely retire, they're going to replace you. My plan is to still do a certain amount of writing, plus I'm working on a couple books, so that shouldn't be a problem. But I'll be out in LA next. I would miss it because of the fact that, Vermeil, he's kind of a lock to since he's already been nominated by the coaching committee. But still, he would need the 80% of the full selection committee vote to officially be a part of the class of 2022. So I'd like to be there for that.
But if you go out to L.A., there's a good chance you might still do the meeting on your computer in your hotel room in L.A. because a buddy of yours, one of your compatriots on the voting class, Gary Myers, said that he got the feeling that it went so smoothly last year when you did it virtually that they may do that again this year, even though it's probably not going to be as necessary, that he thought that the guy didn't mind doing it and there weren't many complaints about it, that they might do it that way anyway just because it went as well as it did last year. What did you hear?
Well, it's very possible, especially since right now we have no idea what's going to happen with COVID going forward here. I mean, the prognosis is from a lot of doctors doesn't seem to be very good with the stubbornness of people that don't want to get vaccinated and the variants. So it wouldn't surprise me. It did work out very well. I think we had it I want to say maybe 3 weeks prior to, ordinarily the vote is the Saturday right before the Super Bowl at the Super Bowl site. The Zoom call that we had last year, I believe, was either in late December, early January, but it did work out well, and they may end up deciding to go that way again.
Paul, I kind of wanted to get your thoughts on Sam Cunningham. I know he tragically passed away yesterday. What was his relationship like with Randall? Because I never really got to hear it, if they were close or anything like that.
Well, there was a big age difference between the two of them, but they seem to be as close as you could be for people, brothers that were not close in age. He seemed to use his. I think it was a negative from the standpoint of he wasn't around much to help Randall when he was growing up, when he was developing. I think Randall probably could have used an older brother, giving him more advice at that point, especially when he got to the NFL, and that wasn't really the case. But they were, as brothers who I'm not sure what the age difference was. It's got to be at least 10 years, I think.
14, actually.
Yeah. They were as close as you could be under those circumstances, which typically is not very close because you're almost living two different lives.
And Damo, you and I are both old enough to remember, never did a guy's nickname fit him as well as Sam Bam Cunningham. The guy was just amazing down on the goal line. Either one of two ways. He could stone cold run over somebody, meet him at the point of attack and go, no, you're going backwards into the end zone. And he also had the ability to get up and off the ground. And I remember him, a phrase that nobody used when Sam was playing, high pointing it. He could high point with anybody. We talk about high pointing with receivers. Oh, he could high point from the backfield and get up and over defensive lines. I remember him taking lunges into the end zone. He was the first guy that I remembered being a goal line back specialist.
Yeah. Clearly it must have been a genetic thing too, because you look at Randall's daughter, high jumper, right?
Yeah,
correct.
Yeah, and Randall could jump through the sky as well. So vertical jump ability was obviously a talent in that family.
So when Randall was coming into his own at UNLV and obviously picked by the Eagles, like, was he first mentioned as like, oh, that's Sam Bam's brother, or was that Sam Cunningham's brother, or was he his own entity at that point?
He was kind of his own entity. He was a second-round pick. I mean, everybody. I mean, if you wrote a story, you mentioned that he was Sam's brother, younger brother, but because of that age difference, it was different, and so there weren't a lot of references to it. Randall was, and Randall was much different than Sam. I mean, Randall was so much different than anywhere, and as far as his personality, he was kind of out there at times. So it wasn't like he was Sam's brother. It was he was Randall. Let me be me, as he used to love to say.
That was Randall. All right. Speaking of let me be me, I do want to get one or two more questions in, but then we do want to hit you with an Eagle question or two before we let you run out of here.
Mm-hmm.
I'll never write my last column. At some point, I'm going to do my last radio show. And I hope I know when I'm doing my last radio show that I can dictate it more so than my employer dictating it. But I've certainly contemplated it. In ways, I got to believe it's the toughest column you're ever going to write. And in other ways, I think it's got to be the easiest column you're ever going to write because you know that it's coming and you've gathered some thoughts for it before, and you basically get to put your emotions out there on paper. Damo, reading your last one, I thought was just phenomenal, and it captured all the years that I've been reading you just as a fan of yours. Was it the easiest or was it the hardest column you've ever written?
Probably closer to hardest. I mean, I knew what I wanted to say. I kind of knew how I was going to go into it very early on. then you're torn between. I really had trouble figuring out what the things I wanted to mention, the people it wasn't so much the people I wanted to mention as I was afraid of forgetting people,
Right.
which I did anyway. So all that, but it took. I mean, I spent 5 days on that, maybe off and on, which is a long time for for that kind of story. But when you know it's your last story, you kind of want to get it right. It was kind of nice that a lot of people seem to think I did. So, I was happy with it when it was over.
You kind of led to my next question, Paul. I was going to ask you that had to take a week, but when you first, when it hit that you were going to retire on September 1st, right, and everything just bottled in, like, what was the first thing you thought of? Was it your dad when you wrote that?
Yeah, it was, because, not only the fact that, the advice he gave me, but, I'm retiring at 67. He retired at 65 and died at 67. I mean, I don't expect to die, but, it's one of those things you're thinking about, especially when you look back on, I've always thought of people like Bear Bryant and a lot of coaches that retire and drop dead, which is why I decided, when I retire, I'm going to make sure I stay busy. I'm not going to go and sit in the chair. And even though I joked in the story about watching a lot of British detective series, I plan on still doing a lot of writing. So hopefully I'll be able to write for quite a long time. But my dad was the first thing I thought of when I realized I was going to retire.
One last retirement question, and I do want to get your Eagles thoughts. That's why we brought you on more than anything. We know you still know the team. You mentioned your buddy Les, who also took the buyout. He's still doing a little work. We caught him in an Eagle press conference just recently doing some AP work. When both you guys decided to take the buyout that was offered to you, did they offer it to you at the same time? Did you talk to Les about thinking along those lines? Did he talk to you about it? How did the conversation go between you guys? Did it just, I took it, and boom, it was over and done with?
Yeah. I think he was thinking about it before I was, because we got to the day before the deadline for taking it, and I still had no intention of taking it. I'm 67. My plan always has been to work till I was 70. And I'm out cutting the grass the day before the deadline, and I get a call from our human resource person who asks me if I'm thinking, am I aware that tomorrow's the deadline, and am I thinking about it? And I told her no, and she basically suggested that maybe I should think about it, which kind of, planted the whole seed of how much they really wanted me, and whether it kind of triggered a whole bunch of stuff that made me realize the time was right to just retire and move on and do some other stuff right now. I think Les, in talking to Les, and we talked a lot, we still do. Les I know his biggest concern about retiring was that you lose your identity. We've done this for so long. We've been identified with, being the Eagles beat writers, and that's how people see you, and that's how you see yourself. And suddenly you're not that anymore, and you worry, can you deal with that? And I think that wasn't something I thought a whole lot about. I think it bothered him more than me. But I think he came to grips with it. You see, as you mentioned with the AP thing, he's going to keep doing a lot of stuff. So, I think he's happy with his decision, and I'm certainly happy with mine.
Well, did you or Les ever think, and I forgot to ask Les this the last time he was on, but did you guys ever think of maybe, writing the same style? Because I feel like, as someone who works for CBS and does a lot of the digital media stuff, they like more stuff than you write than just some, fluff piece saying how great the team is or anything like that. They like, the journalism you guys provide. Have you guys ever thought of, maybe, okay, if we ever took the buyout, if we don't want to retire, maybe we go that route or write for like a Philly Voice or something like that?
Well, I mean, when you see who's taken the buyouts from our paper over the last several months, I mean, you can put together a pretty good staff.
Yeah, you can. All-star staff.
You know, I mean, so sure, it's something you think about. You know, I mean, I've had people suggest, you know, doing an Eagles newsletter, or some other things. You know, it's kind of like, you know, I want to move on, but I don't want to pass opportunities up if they're there. So I'm going to basically play it by ear as we move along here. But I do, you know, it's really important to me I want you guys, I think, know I'm doing a book on Sam Mills. I really want to get started on that. It's kind of been, you know, something that I've wanted to do for a long time. I think it's a great topic, and so I don't want to waste a whole lot of time where I'm just nibbling at it. I really want to commit to it. So, you know, we'll see how it goes here.
All right, Domo, we got about 15 minutes you left here, and we want to do what we do at Paul Domwitch, is to get Eagle opinion and information. You've gone through a lot of coaching changes here in Philadelphia, different ups and downs and personality quirks and accomplishments and failures and the like. Before it gets going, what is Nick Sirianni?
To be determined, I guess, Jody. You know, I like the guy. I like his attitude. I like his approach. The players seem to react well to what initially, you know, would seem to be kind of some amusing approaches. The whole competition thing, I wondered how that would fly. You know, so far so good, but we haven't gotten to the point where they're, you know, you're 3-6, and you know, a lot of things that work now don't work when you're struggling. You know, that's one of the things with Doug Peterson was that I was, you know, that I was impressed with was in a couple of the years that he was here, and not the year that he won the Super Bowl, but the first year, and I think in 18 or 19 or 20, I mean, they were at one point, they were like 5-7, and, you know, he brought them back. I mean, he got them at the end when you got to get a team to win, he got them to win and play well, and I thought that spoke well for him. You know, right now we don't know anything about what Nick's going to run offensively. I mean, he's playing it close to the vest. I think he's a pretty smart offensive guy who's got, you know, has learned a lot from the people that he's worked for. Plus, you know, coming up from a coaching family, going to use his running backs a lot. So, you know, if he has the talent, if Jalen Hurts is truly, if he can be a functional, I'm not saying a franchise quarterback, but if he can be your quarterback going forward, I think Sirianni has a chance to succeed here.
Paul, doesn't Hurts kind of give you like that McNabb vibe in the sense like he doesn't, his completion percentage isn't high, but he always just seems to make the right play at the right time. He just seems to be that guy where the box score isn't going to look pretty, but they're going to win games. They're going to get the job done. Do you see a lot of, you know, and I know Eagles fans hate Donovan McNabb for some reason, but, you know, do you kind of see the McNabb vibe in Jalen Hurts?
A little bit. The two differences, though, Jeff, that I see with him is one, Jalen's, and it's his strength, Jalen's a natural leader. You can see that. The players just react to him right from the start, going back to last year. You know, Donovan preached about being a leader, never really was. He was a leader from the standpoint that he played quarterback, and you have to be the leader to some degree to be the quarterback. But he wasn't a guy people followed. I mean, you know, we can go back to the T.O. episode that split the locker room. I mean, even when T.O. was behaving as badly as he was, still half the locker room was on T.O.'s side as opposed to Donovan. So, and the other thing is, Donovan did not want to run. Donovan didn't. He was trying to get past that, even though it was a tremendous upside for him. We're not going to see that as a reluctance with Jalen. I mean, you know, he clearly has been told to, you know, they've tried to work on him going through his progressions better this year, on his accuracy, but he's still going to run when he has the opportunity. And I would too. I mean, every mobile quarterback in this league has taken advantage of that, from Kyler Murray to Lamar Jackson. I mean, you're making a defense basically play zone all the time because they can't turn their back on you. I mean, it's going to be, you know, I don't know that he's going to run 200 times, but he's got the kind of body that can kind of take a beating. I think he's going to run a lot this year.
Damo, you and I both have 30-plus years experience media members as this town. You're would have been sneaking up on 40. I'm just over 30, but we've both been here a long time. And I picked up this phrase when I got to Philadelphia, and I'd never heard it before. I'd never heard it ushered, but it is a Philly phrase through and through. Plays like his hair's on fire. I'd never heard that before I got here to Philadelphia, but it is a great Philly phrase. Is Alex Singleton one of those type of players?
Yeah, I think so. Always around the ball. I mean, plays like, yeah. I mean, he plays 100% with reckless abandon. He's a fun guy to watch. And he's going to be one of, assuming he stays healthy, I mean, he's going to be one of their defensive leaders this year.
Paul, I kind of want to get into Andy Reid a little bit. I know you covered those teams that made 4 consecutive conference title games in Philadelphia, and I just remember being a young fan at the time. It's, you just knew the Eagles were going to be good every single year. It's like, okay, do we even worry about this team until they get to the conference title game? Don't the Chiefs feel like they're in the midst of that right now with Reid, Mahomes? It just feels like no matter how good the AFC is, the Chiefs are going to be there at the end.
Yeah, I mean, when he won the one Super Bowl, and knowing that he's going to have Mahomes for a long time, you knew that he would have any thoughts that he might have been thinking about retiring went out the window, because you got a quarterback like that, you don't walk away from it. Now, the personal issues he's dealing with, God knows where they play into his future. But yeah, I mean, that's a team that's going to be right there every year in the AFC. I can't imagine that changing. I mean, the Raiders are getting better, Chargers are getting better, but they're still the best team in that division, in that conference. And there's no, if you're asking me who's going to be in the Super Bowl again this year, it would be them.
Damo, last year, the Eagles set new all-time low records for yardage by their wide receivers. They just didn't get the ball to the wide receivers much at all. The year before, no wide receiver, 500 yards. Last year, Travis Fulgham just over 500 yards. So 2 years running, barely a wide receiver with 500 yards. We all believe Devonta Smith's going to do that this year. Fingers crossed he stays healthy. We know he's that kind of talent. If I tell you another Eagle wide receiver is going to get over 500 yards, do you think it's going to be more Jalen Reagor or Quez Watkins?
I'd probably say Reagor. I think all three of them have a real good chance of that happening, because I think what we're going to see out of Sirianni's offense that maybe we didn't see as much with Peterson is they're going to throw screens to these guys like they did with Quez in that first game when he had the long touchdown run. I mean, you want to get the ball to these guys in space. Don't make them get separation down the field where you've got to worry about protection and everything. Just get it out to them. And let them do their thing. And all of them are elusive. All of them are yards after the catch people. So it wouldn't surprise me if all three of those guys have 500-plus yards this year. The question is, I think they want to play a lot of 11 personnel this year, and yet they've kept Ertz, they've kept Goddard, and they also have They have 3 tight ends right now, with Tyree Jackson probably going to return at some point. So that's kind of one of the unknowns. We don't know. Formation-wise, how they're going to line up. They want to use their running backs a lot in the passing game. But I think those receivers are going to get the ball in space on quick throws and let them do their thing.
Paul, what scares me to death about this football team is, since we're talking about wide receivers, is outside of Devonta Smith, Jalen Reagor, Quez Watkins, I like Greg Ward. I just don't think they have anyone that can just step in there and have the type of production they have. Like, do they need to get somebody else in here just for depth?
Well, if somebody gets hurt, you're right. There's not a lot of depth there. I don't know what to make of Fulgham. They've got him on the practice squad now. JJ, I thought he was, not going to make the team until he played well in the last preseason game. There's not. I have a little bit more confidence in Ward than you do, probably a little bit, Jeff. I just think he's a solid. He's not fast. He's not the fastest guy in the world, but because they're going to be facing a lot of zone defenses this year, because of what Hurts's running ability. Ward is an excellent slot guy against zones because of the quarterback background. He knows how to find those soft areas in zones, and I think he and Hurts have developed some chemistry for a lot of reasons, including the fact that he's a former quarterback. Now, again, he's not. I mean, Watkins has taken that third spot, and they'll either use Watkins or Rager, I guess, right now in that slot when they play three wide receivers. But I think Ward still can be a productive receiver for this team. But after that, I mean, if they have one or two guys go down, they do have troubles, and they're going to have to. I don't know where they go for answers, because there aren't a lot of guys besides Fulgham on the practice squad, and what Fulgham, he disappointed me in training camp when we talked to him late, and he was asked about what happened last year, and he essentially blamed it all on the fact that Alshon Jeffrey came back, which that is just that's when somebody like him says that. That's just a bad way to look at it. I mean, you're not looking at yourself, and the fact that Alshon didn't even play that much anyway, so it was kind of a lame excuse. But that told me a lot about how Travis was, and he's a smart guy. I mean, he's smarter than that. He comes from a family, a smart family, and how he looked at that situation and saw that is why he kind of fell off the face of the earth after those 5 games last year. Just amazed me. So I don't know what they do if they do have one or two bad injuries.
Almost said the same exact thing here on Birds 365. So smart minds think alike. We believe that the Eagles are going to run a lot of RPOs. Now, we can't judge that from the preseason because the quarterback took all of 10 snaps. So how much are you going to take out of 10 snaps? But we believe that's the case. The guys who are down in practice seen as much as they run RPO type reps. It's a required skill. It's an acquired skill. I never thought that Nick Foles was going to be good at it, and damn, wasn't he good at it in the Chip Kelly offense. It doesn't all have to be about the ability to pull it down and make plays with your legs. We know that Hurts has that. We saw that firsthand last year. It has to do with feel and smarts. Is Jalen Hurts up to the task to make the RPO really work for the Birds this year?
Well, he made it work at Oklahoma. I mean, I thought it was, he was not a guy that, and we've seen it this camp too. He's not a guy you want sitting in that pocket on 7-step drops and kind of waiting for somebody to get open. It wasn't his strength. I mean, in camp, a lot of his bad throws were those kind. He was better when he was on the run. He was better when he was getting it out quickly on plays that essentially would be RPOs. The success of the running game is going to have a lot to do with that. I mean, if those guys, the running game is going to dictate a lot of his success this year. Not his running, some of it, but they just need to get the defense to respect the fact that they can run the ball. They do that, then you can do a lot of things with the passing game off of that.
Well, one thing, I guess, maybe it's just me. I'm always excited for the start of NFL season, but, just being local, I always get excited for when the new head coach starts, and it's definitely a great thing when it's a new head coach and a new quarterback. Kind of feels like 2016 in a way, 99 with Andy Reid and Doug Peterson. Like, do you get that vibe just, covering this team all those years? And what was your, favorite new head coach, experience of that? I probably know the answer, but
the thing I like about this group is, and I liked it when they made the hire, was they brought in Brian Johnson, who knows Jalen well. They brought him in as the quarterback's coach. He's a smart. He was an up and comer at Florida. He had 2 head coaching interviews at Boise State and someplace else last year. So, and he's only 33, I think. Yeah. I think he's going to have a lot of influence on Jalen's success this year. And your second question, Jeff?
Yeah, all those years you covered the Eagles. You went through so many new head coaches, so many new quarterbacks, and it's to me it's always exciting. But what was the new head coach where you were just extra amped up for whatever reason?
It would have to be Andy, I guess. Chip Kelly was a novelty. But that, dealing with him was a challenge. I mean, Andy was just, Andy came out of nowhere. Jim Haslett was the guy everybody was talking about, the guy Tom Modrak, who was essentially the general manager at the time, wanted. Joe Banner and Jeff Lurie just they preferred Andy, who was the quarterback's coach in Green Bay then. And I mean, watching him develop as a head coach, he brought in 2 older coordinators, which which Nick isn't doing, by the way. It's the first time, I think in the past, Jeffrey has preferred, when he's had a new head coach, to go find some veterans as coordinators. That isn't the case here. I think they're going to take a different approach with this group. It's like they want to grow. They want to have them grow together. But I mean, watching Andy with a quarterback, he was in a similar situation with Nick and Jalen, first-year quarterback. I mean, they drafted Donovan that first year, and you got a chance to watch Andy develop him as a quarterback. So that probably was it. Who were you thinking I was going to say?
It was Andy Reid. So
okay.
that's who I was, because it just felt fresh after the whole Ray Rhodes era. I can't imagine covering that team during that time. Watch a lot of those games. I'm like, this has to be the most frustrating Eagles team of all time.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you. Go ahead. Sorry, Dama.
I was just going to say, Jody probably remembers. I mean, John Gruden was here as the offensive coordinator for Parker Rhodes's tenure, but he was very young, and they just didn't have any quarterbacks that could play.
I was going to say, if Jeff had asked me the question, the coach that I was most pumped up for was absolutely Ray Rhodes. He gave the most inspirational first press conference.
He got the most
over Andy Reid, over Chip Kelly, over Doug Peterson, over Nick Sirianni. I actually wanted to go out and hit a blocking sled. He had me pumped up that day. Now, the era was what the era was, but I thought Ray was great in his introductory press conference. You remember that, Damo?
Oh, yeah. The man was inspirational.
Yeah.
Damo, I got to ask you about that coaching search. Wasn't it like Jeffrey Lurie wanted Jimmy Johnson or something like that, and then what was the Dick Vermeil thing? He couldn't get him, or they couldn't come to an agreement or something like that?
I don't know how serious it was. I mean, they did talk to him. I'm trying to think back. I don't know how serious it was as far as him. I know at one point they thought about bringing him into the front office. They did a lot of research. They talked to people. I mean, and they talked to agents. They talked to other players. They wanted different perspectives on a coach, not necessarily from, I think it ended up being Mike Holmgren that convinced them, because a lot of people were telling them back, this was back then, even today, the coaches get criticized if, Doug Peterson didn't call his own plays, and it was brought up when the Eagles hired him. But, same thing was the case with Andy in Green Bay. He was a quarterback's coach. He wasn't even the coordinator. But the last guy they talked to was Holmgren, who said, hey, because everybody else was saying he's not ready. He needs to be a coordinator first. And, Holmgren said he's ready. Don't worry about the play calling experience. He's ready to be a head coach. And they went with that. And it turned out to be the best decision that Jeffrey Lurie has made since he's on the team.
All right, last thing, Damo, and if you've thought of this question, I guess that's cool. If you haven't, I'll get you thinking. Week 3, Eagles are playing. You're watching the game. Something happens, the way the game goes, something maybe an announcer says that catches your attention and the like, and boom, it just pops into your head. That's the question I'm asking when the game is over. That's what I'm going to put to Nick Sirianni. I need the answer. I need to know why this happened, and you're not going to get a chance to do it. Who are you texting? Which of your compatriots are you texting that either you're on the same wavelength from, or maybe you don't think you'll ask the question and you want to lend them a helping hand by giving them the question? Anybody you're going to reach out with a text as an Eagle game is ending this year to go, hey, by the way, could you ask Sirianni this for me?
Yeah, I'd probably text or call EJ Smith. We seem to be on the same wavelength more than I've been with. Les and I have disagreed Jeff and myself have disagreed. EJ and I agree more than we disagree. So it would probably be him.
Paul, is there one over your career? Was there like one time where you asked a question and you got an answer that was totally out of left field, that was just, you could write a story on, quote on it right away, even though that wasn't your intent? Like, can you think of any of those moments?
Boy, nah, Jeff, I'd have to think about it. I can get back to you tomorrow.
That's fine if you want. You can send me a tweet on it. Be like, oh, yeah, I remember this from whoever, player X.
Damo, great stuff. We appreciate you coming on board. Know full well we're going to be asking often because we truly appreciate your insights, and you got some downtime, so you might as well hang with us here on Birds 365.
Exactly.
Thanks for doing it today. And yes, I truly appreciated your final column. I thought it was tremendously well written. I could tell you put your heart into it. The Eagle fans will miss you, my friend. We'll try and give you a little taste of Domowitch here on Birds 365 coming up. Thanks, bud.
Thanks for having me, guys. Take care. Have a good day.
Paul Domwitz, only been covering the Birds for 3 decades here in Philadelphia. All right, Jeff Kerr, Jody Mack, we're running late. Come back. We'll put a bow on the show. Wrap up another edition of Birds 365.
Hey, Eagles fans, if you're a subscriber to the JAKIB Media YouTube channel, you are already registered to win a pair of season tickets for the upcoming season. That's right, you could win a pair of season tickets for the upcoming 2021 season just for being a subscriber. If you're watching and you're not a subscriber, do it now. Subscribe to the JAKIB Media YouTube channel right now. What do you need to do? Subscribe right now.
As a hard-working American, you've never experienced how tough life can be until now. A catastrophic injury while working on the job. A personal injury from someone else's negligence. Turned away by other law firms in the region who didn't bother to learn your story. It's time to meet the Fritz & Beyond Cooley Law Firm and managing partner Brian Fritz. Badly injured? Call the Fritz & Beyond Cooley Law Firm. Find out why they say, "We got this."
The International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local Union 98, is a proud sponsor of The Labor Show with J. Doc and Krause every Saturday night from 6 till 8 p.m. IBEW Local 98's highly trained and superbly skilled electricians are the best in the business, setting the highest safety standards in the electrical industry. So when you're planning your next industrial, commercial, or residential project, choose an IBEW Local 98 union contractor. Learn more at IBEW98.org.
The savoring taste of a good bag of beef jerky is so enjoyable at any time of the day, as long as you can find it. Here's what we suggest. Pure Bull Beef Jerky is our answer, and soon it will be yours. Locally produced in the Philadelphia region, this high-quality, healthy protein snack is easy to secure. Go to steersnacks.com, and you'll see hot garlic, tropical heat, Pure Bull dry rub, and our favorite, Huck and Fod. What's that? Huck and Fod. Go now to steersnacks.com.
I get scared sometimes.
Of a lot of things.
Joining in.
Decisions.
The dark.
The dark.
But I once heard someone say,
But as I always say,
it's okay to be afraid.
as long as you face the fear.
And keep moving forward.
Wherever you are in life, count on the name trusted in insurance for over 80 years. Independence Blue Cross.
On the field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
7 on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
All right, clock's ticking pretty good on us here on Bird 365. Got Jeff Kerr in for John McMullen, who is off to Eagle duty, how to get his COVID test to be able to cover the team going forward. Once a week, he's got to go down. So we get Jeff doing a great job filling in. All right, Jeff, you're going to close out the show for us today. by answering a two-part question that I'm going to put to you. Both fill-in-the-blank questions, and feel free to answer them in whichever order you choose. The Philadelphia Eagles will beat the Atlanta Falcons because blank. Unfortunately, the Nick Sirianni era gets off with a loss, and the Eagles lose to the Falcons because blank. Give me the answer to each of those questions. Feel free to go win first, followed by loss, or loss first, followed by win.
If the Eagles win, it's going to be because their defensive line just destroys the Falcons' offensive line and gets to Matt Ryan and doesn't allow Matt Ryan to basically throw it up to Calvin Ridley and Kyle Pitts and let them just destroy the Eagles' secondary. So I actually think that's going to happen. I think the defensive line is going to have a big day. I will be incredibly disappointed if they don't. I think Atlanta's offensive line just isn't good. There are players I like on that line, but overall, unless Arthur Smith, creates an offensive line like he did with the Titans and finds different ways with his concepts and stuff, the Eagles should have a field day. Now they'll lose if they let Matt Ryan just basically throw to Kyle Pitts, Calvin Ridley, and Russell Gage all day long and let the big plays happen. And the Eagles can't stop it because that's what happened 2 years ago in 2019. Matt Ryan, they contained Julio Jones the entire day. I know Julio Jones isn't there anymore, but the fourth down play, they let Julio Jones catch a 50-yard touchdown, and that was the game. And, thank God Julio Jones is not on the Atlanta Falcons anymore, because I had this as a loss when I did my win-loss projections in May, but Julio Jones was on the team. He's not on the team anymore, so I'm flipping here, and call me whatever you want. I'm flipping. I got the Eagles win this one.
Yeah, but remember, Julio Jones did get his hands on the ball in the end zone in 2017 in that playoff game. And if he had come down with that one,
I give a little more credit to Jalen Mills there, too. He put him in that position where that was the only way he could catch it. By the way, I'm still shocked Julio Jones did not catch that pass.
Right. If you're supposed to be one of the 2 or 3 best wide receivers in the league, got to make that play. Average wide receiver doesn't make that play because of the defensive effort. Best wide receiver in the league supposed to make that play, and he didn't. And the rest, as they say, is history. All right. So JK says it'll be more Eagles defense against Falcon offense that determines it on Sunday. Could play out that way. JK, good stuff. Thanks as always for filling in. We'll be tapping into you again soon enough. Thanks, brother.
Always a pleasure, Jody. Can't wait for Sunday. I got 2 big ones. That's the Eagles. I get Browns Chiefs, man. I'm excited. I'm so ready for football.
Very nice. Mr. McMullen and I will be back here the next couple of days. I'm going to ask the same question of myself that I just asked of Jeff. I just don't have to answer it yet because we got 2 more days to go. This week here on Birds 365.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.